All right, so we're diving deep into the capture of Sambhaji Maharaj. And let me tell you, this one is going to take you down a rabbit hole of betrayal. I mean, it's more intricate than you might think, so buckle up. We're going through this Marathi video, Maharashtra Bhumi, really trying to unpack Dinoji Shirki's motives here. Was he a traitor? Was it pragmatism? Or was it something else entirely, you know?
It's fascinating. It's not like a straightforward military defeat. This is like a pivotal moment, really, in Maratha history. And it all comes down to these shifting alliances, ambition, maybe even a calculated play for power.
Okay, so to set the stage, right, we're talking about the period right after Shivaji Maharaj dies, the legendary Shivaji Maharaj. And his son, Sambhaji Maharaj, inherits this vast empire, but he's got enemies all around. It's like sharks circling, you know? The Mughals are always a threat, that's a given. But then there's these internal factions, too, even family members with their own agendas.
Right, and that's where the Shirki family comes into the picture. So Balaji Shirki, who is a skilled warrior, he joined Shivaji Maharaj's forces. And his son, Binoji Shirki, he even married Shivaji Maharaj's daughter, Yasubai. So you'd think rock-solid allies, right?
You would think, right? Family ties and all that. But that's where things get really interesting because Ganoji, he really craved Watan. You know, that system of hereditary land rights? Basically gave a family control over specific regions. Now, Sambhaji Maharaj, he favored a much more centralized system of governance. He kind of saw Watan as a potential threat to his authority.
And you got to remember, this wasn't just about the land itself, Watan. It was deeply intertwined with Maratha identity. It represented power and influence within that whole social fabric. So Sambhaji Maharaj's vision, while it might have been necessary for a strong, unified empire, it could also be seen as a move that, risked alienating powerful families, like the Shirkis.
That's a good point. So was Sambhaji Maharaj being too radical then? Was he kind of underestimating how important Watan was to maintain stability?
Well, it's a complex question, isn't it? On one hand, he's trying to build a strong empire, one that can actually resist the Mughals. But on the other hand, he's potentially alienating these powerful families, families that were historically essential to Maratha power. It's a tough balancing act, for sure.
Yeah, I can see that. And it seems like that tension, that's right at the heart of Ganoji Shirk's motivations, right? You have this guy, married into the royal family, he's a skilled warrior himself, but he's denied the traditional power and influence he feels he deserves.
Right. Imagine being in his shoes for a second. There's this simmering resentment, right? A feeling of being sidelined despite his family's contributions, his own abilities. So he starts looking for other avenues to secure that power and influence, the power he feels he's been denied.
And that leads him to the Mughals.
Exactly. The video really highlights Ganoji's secret dealings with Mukarrab Khan, a Mughal general he's more than happy to exploit any cracks in the Maratha Empire. And Ganoji's knowledge, of the Maratha forces, their strategies, the terrain even, it becomes this valuable weapon for the Mughals.
Wow, so it's not just personal resentment then, is it? It's like he becomes this strategic asset for the enemy. That's a high-stakes gamble, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And this is where the story shifts to Sangameshwar. This town, known for its temples, religious significance. Sambhaji Maharaj, he's there, performing these religious rites. But it wasn't just a casual visit. Sangameshwar, it was a place where the Maratha rulers traditionally sought spiritual guidance. Especially before major campaigns or decisions, they would go there.
So the location itself adds another layer to this whole situation. It's not just strategic. It's a place full of symbolic meaning for the Marathas.
Exactly, you got it. And it's during these rituals when Sambhaji Maharaj is, you could say, at his most vulnerable, that's when Ganoji makes his move.
That timing is just wow. But I'm curious, if Ganoji was so resentful, why not join forces with other nobles who were unhappy? Why go straight to the Mughals?
That's a great question. And it's one historians still debate, Was it purely opportunistic? Did he just see the Mughals as the winning side? Or was there something more to it? A deeper strategy, maybe? Something the sources just don't fully reveal. It's that ambiguity that makes Ganoji Shirka such a fascinating and controversial figure.
Yeah, he's a real enigma, isn't he? Okay, so let's talk about the ambush itself. The video, it doesn't hold back on the details. It describes this swift, brutal attack orchestrated with Ganoji's help.
It's stated directly in the video. Ganoji gave Mukarrab Khan all the details. Sambhaji Maharaj's location, the defenses at Sangameshwar, even the surrounding terrain. He basically guided the Mughal forces through these treacherous paths. A total surprise attack.
So he's not just like passively resentful then. He's actively involved, providing this crucial information that leads to Sambhaji Maharaj's capture. What gets me is that Sambhaji Maharaj, it's like he had this feeling, this foreboding. He even told his commander, Maloji Gorpada, to be extra vigilant. He said, if needed, I'll send for you.
That detail, man, it really gets to me. It shows the trust Sambhaji Maharaj had in his commanders. especially in a time when loyalty was constantly tested. It makes Ganoji's betrayal that much more stark.
It's almost Shakespearean, that sense of doom, the betrayal from someone so close, the chaos of the ambush.
Absolutely. And remember, Sandabeshwar wasn't just any place, it held spiritual significance. The fact that Sambhaji Maharaj is captured during these religious rites, it adds this layer of tragedy, even irony, to the whole event.
Yeah, it really does. So, okay, Ganoji's role in the capture, that's undeniable, but we still have that question, right? What were his true motives? Was it just about Watan? Or was there something more calculated going on?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And that's what we're going to delve into even deeper as we explore the aftermath of the capture and try to really understand, the complexities of Ganoji's actions.
All right, sounds like a plan. So stick with us, folks. We're going even deeper into this web of betrayal, and we'll try to untangle the truth behind Ganoji Shirti's actions. Okay, so we left off with the capture of Sambhaji Maharaj at Sangameshwar. This betrayal orchestrated by, well, Ganoji Shirk, right? And it's easy to just label him as the villain, but the video we're looking at, it kind of hints at a more complex story, right?
Yeah, there are definitely more layers to this. There's this one incident before the capture even happens. It kind of gives us a glimpse into the whole political scene at the time. So Ganoji's watchman, he was killed by this guy Desai. And Desai, he went to Sambhaji Maharaj for protection. And Sambhaji Maharaj, as punishment, he confiscated the land of Desai's entire village.
Wow, so even while dealing with this personal conflict, involving Ganoji, Sambhaji Maharaj is also aware of Ganoji's ties with the Mughals. He's got a lot on his plate, doesn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. It shows the kind of pressure he was under, trying to maintain order, keep everyone in line, while also dealing with these external threats. It's a tough spot to be in.
No kidding. And this brings us to another interesting detail from the video. This intercepted letter, written by a judge, Prahlad Pant, to Ganoji Shirk. And this letter, it suggests something pretty wild.
It does, yeah. It basically proposes that Ganoji should deport Rajaram, who was Sambhaji's younger half-brother. As a potential claimant to the throne, this judge, Prahlad Pant, he promises Ganoji all this wealth and influence if he helps install Rajaram as ruler.
Hold on, a judge is involved in this, communicating with someone who might be colluding with the enemy? And they're suggesting they overthrow the current ruler. This is some serious palace intrigue stuff, man.
Oh, for sure. It just goes to show you that loyalty back then, it was a fluid thing. Alliances were constantly shifting. Personal ambitions, they often came first. So Ganoji, he's not just dealing with the Mughals. There are plots within the Maratha court itself.
Man, talk about being surrounded. No wonder Sambhaji Maharaj sought solace in those religious rituals at Sangameshwar. It's like he was trying to find some peace amidst all this chaos.
The video really emphasizes that sense of unease, It describes Sambhaji Maharaj's journey to Sangameshwar, the rituals he performed. It's almost like he was looking for guidance, or maybe just a moment of peace before things went down.
And then, right in the middle of those rituals, when he's at his most vulnerable, that's when Ganoji makes his move.
Right, the video is very clear about that. Ganoji gave Mukarrab Khan all the information he needed. Location, defenses, the terrain. That inside knowledge, that's what made the ambush so successful.
It's crazy how it all played out. But you mentioned earlier that Ganoji might have had a deeper strategy, right? So could this betrayal, shocking as it is, have been part of a larger plan?
That's the question, isn't it? And honestly, it's hard to say for sure. The sources we have, they give us glimpses, but not the whole picture. It's like trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. We have to consider different perspectives,
Yeah, I see what you mean. So the capture itself, it was a huge blow to the Maratha Empire, but the motives behind it, they're still up for debate. Resentment, ambition, shifting loyalties, maybe even a long game that we're only just starting to understand. What happens next? What does Ganoji do after the capture?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. We're going to dive into the aftermath of this whole event and try to untangle the threads of Ganoji Shirk's legacy.
All right, sounds like we're going even deeper down this rabbit hole. Stick with us, folks. We're about to uncover what happened next and try to make sense of this complex figure, Ganoji Shirk. All right, so we've been really digging into this turning point in Maratha history, the capture of Sambhaji Maharaj, and Ganoji Shirk's hand in it all. We know his actions were a total disaster for the Marathas, but his motives, they're still kind of a mystery, right? What happened after the capture? Did Ganoji just, fade into the Mughal ranks?
Well, not exactly. No, this is where it gets even more fascinating, honestly. The video mentions Ganoji being involved in the siege of Jinji. That's where Rajaram, Sambhaji's half-brother, had gone for safety. Remember that letter we talked about? From the judge, Prahlad Pant. The one that suggested Ganoji should back Rajaram for the throne.
Yeah. That whole kingmaker idea is like Ganoji was playing both sides, potentially. but he'd literally just betrayed Sambhaji. So why help his brother then?
It does seem kind of contradictory, right? So during this siege, a Maratha warrior, Kondo Bilal, he approaches Ganoji. He offers him control of the Dabhol region, which was a pretty big deal back then, the catch. He had to help Rajram escape.
Hang on, so even after betraying Sambhaji, Ganoji's still open to cutting deals with the Marathas, even helping them. This isn't just about him getting ahead. There's some serious political strategizing going on here, right?
It's definitely possible. Some historians see this as a sign that Ganoji's loyalty to the Marathas wasn't completely gone. Maybe he thought he could influence things to the inside. Weaken the Mughals in the long run.
It's almost like he's trying to be this power broker, someone who can decide who gets to be king. Did he pull it off? What happened to him in the end?
Well, the historical record, it's pretty vague about how Ganoji Shirk died. There's no clear account, really. Just theories and stories that have been passed down. Some say he died peacefully. Others think it was more dramatic, maybe even violent.
So even in death, he's a bit of a puzzle. More questions than answers. Was Ganoji a brilliant strategist who regretted what he did? Or just someone out for himself, taking advantage whenever he could?
That's what makes this whole deep dive so interesting. The video doesn't give us easy answers. No simple heroes or villains here. We're left with this complex character living in a world where alliances shifted all the time. A world where survival could mean making tough choices, maybe even morally questionable ones.
It makes you think about loyalty and ambition, right? Especially in those times. How do you even define loyalty when who's in charge is always changing?
Yeah. And these questions are still relevant today, even a century later. We might not be facing life or death situations like they did back then, but we still deal with relationships, making decisions that have consequences, and trying to stick to our principles when it seems like everyone else is just doing what's convenient.
It reminds us that history isn't just memorizing dates and battles. It's about the human stories, the choices people made, the things they struggled with that we still struggle with today. What's the big takeaway for you from this whole deep dive into Sambhaji Maharaj's capture?
I think the biggest thing is that history is rarely black and white. No clear-cut good guys or bad guys. Just people trying to figure things out in difficult situations. We might never fully grasp all the reasons behind what they did. Ganoji Shirk's story makes us question those simple labels, makes us grapple with the messiness of the past.
It's a powerful reminder that even our smallest choices can have huge consequences, way beyond what we can imagine at the time. If Ganoji could have seen what his actions would lead to, Sambhaji Maharaj's execution, the Maratha Empire weakening, his own name being tarnished, would he have chosen differently?
That's a great question, and it's one we should all be asking ourselves as we go through life. Our choices, they become our own personal history.
Absolutely. If this deep dive got you thinking, I encourage you to keep exploring. There's so much more to learn about the Maratha Empire. Amazing figures, incredible events. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those history books open.